The bodies of the 5 children from the Liu family were discovered piled on top of each other in a cramped bathroom. Their parents vanished without a trace. Unravel the nightmare that tore an entire family apart. Stay until the end for the horrifying truth. In early September 2006, residents of a narrow alley in Hualien County began to notice a foul odor drifting through the humid air. Although most people initially assumed it came from a drain or some decaying refuse, the smell grew strong enough to spark concern. Several neighbors traced it to a small house at the end of the lane, where a padlocked door and an abandoned bicycle hinted that the occupants had been absent for some time. Despite repeated knocks, nobody answered. Authorities arrived and forced the lock. Inside, they found scattered belongings, a couple of chairs overturned, a thin layer of dust covering the floors, and a stifling quiet that made the tension even heavier. As they made their way upstairs, the unpleasant smell intensified until it became nearly unbearable. When they opened the door to a cramped bathroom on the 3rd floor, the discovery stunned everyone present. 5 bodies, belonging to 3 boys and 2 girls, had been stacked on top of each other in a space barely large enough to stand in. Their limbs showed signs of binding, the wrists bearing rope marks, and their bodies wrapped in old blankets. Tape covered the edges of the windows and the gaps along the door frame, sealing off any possible escape for odours, or, in a more sinister sense, for the victims. The bodies belonged to the children of Liu Chikan and Lin Chen Mei, a couple said to be in serious financial difficulty. Neighbours had occasionally seen the mother heading out for groceries with a listless expression. One recalled how she appeared unnervingly quiet during their last exchange, as though weighed down by something she couldn't voice. Nobody suspected that behind the locked doors, a tragedy of unimaginable horror was unfolding. Investigators searched the other rooms, hoping to find evidence of forced entry or signs of an intruder. What they discovered, however, raised more questions than answers. The parents were missing, and no one in the neighborhood had seen them leave with luggage or vehicles. Money and valuables lay scattered instead of stolen, and the furniture was not ransacked in the way criminals typically loot a home. 2 notes were found, both written hastily in pencil or on scraps of paper, with a message claiming the family had been kidnapped. The script appeared to match Liu Chikan's handwriting, which suggested at least one parent might have had time to leave a clue. This unsettling scene gave rise to several hypotheses. Some believed the family fell victim to a brutal home invasion. Others suspected a far more disturbing scenario in which the parents themselves orchestrated the crime. The taped windows, the lack of any clear signs of a break-in, and the fact that the front door was locked from the inside conflicted with the idea of an external attacker. Questions multiplied. If the family had truly been abducted, why were there no demands or evidence of a forced departure? If it was an internal plot, what drove the parents to such extremes? And where had they gone? Amid rumours and media speculation, investigators noted that Liu Chikan's business had been failing for months, leaving the couple mired in debt. This complicated the possible motivations behind the children's deaths and the parents' disappearance. The extensive use of tape suggested planning, and the condition of the children's remains pointed to a sudden, decisive act rather than a prolonged ordeal. Yet the precise sequence of events remained clouded in uncertainty. The initial horrors of that cramped bathroom set the stage for a tangled investigation into what could have led to such a grim end. Weeks passed, and the investigation into the shocking discovery at the Liu home intensified. Officers examined every corner of the property, cataloguing strands of tape clinging to door frames, footprints left in the dust, and scattered photographs that hinted at a once happy household. No clear sign of forced entry emerged, which led some observers to suspect that whoever had committed these acts possessed full access to the home. A few family portraits turned up in a hallway closet, showing Liu Qikan, Lin Chen-mei and their children smiling in front of a local park. These glimpses of normalcy only deepened the mystery around how such an atrocity could take place. Officials tracked down neighbors and relatives, searching for explanations. Some acquaintances recalled that the father's printing business had fallen on hard times, forcing him to borrow from less reputable lenders. The mother, once polite and soft-spoken, started appearing withdrawn, as though perpetually haunted by worries she could not articulate. Rumors spread that the couple had been threatened by loan sharks, but no clear evidence backed these claims. Investigators found that certain expensive items in the house remained untouched, as though robbery had never been the motive. Authorities also took a closer look at the notes allegedly left by Liu Qikan. The hasty handwriting spelling out pleas for help fueled theories that the couple might have staged a kidnapping to conceal their true intentions. Yet the possibility lingered that an actual third party might have forced them to write those messages. During the forensic examination, analysts discovered partial fingerprints along the strips of tape used to seal the windows. According to preliminary findings, those prints showed a strong likelihood of matching Liu Qikan's. That detail pushed the inquiry toward the grim conclusion that at least one parent had actively participated in restraining the children. Despite the mounting evidence, the parents' whereabouts remained unknown. Local officials expanded their search to nearby towns, checking hospital records and cross-referencing financial transactions to detect any sign of the fugitives. Nothing turned up. The media, meanwhile, amplified the story, describing the scene in lurid detail and presenting possible motives. Speculation ranged from vengeful debt collectors to the notion of a horrifying suicide pact. Yet each theory left gaps that investigators struggled to fill. Friends who had once considered the couple amiable suddenly realized they knew little about the emotional burden that might have driven Liu and Lin to the edge. As the rumor mill churned, the authorities began piecing together a clearer timeline. Statements from teachers indicated that none of the children had shown up at school for several days before the discovery. A nearby shopkeeper remembered Lin Chen-mei purchasing what looked like large rolls of tape around that same period. That seemingly mundane detail placed her at the heart of the preparation for whatever happened behind those locked doors. While no one could say for certain when the final tragedy occurred, the evidence suggested a swift, methodical act, leaving next to no chance for the children to escape. The unanswered questions kept piling up. What triggered the final decision to commit such an unspeakable crime? And why had the couple gone to lengths to plant the idea of an abduction? Investigators struggled to reconcile the horrifying treatment of the children with any rational motive, especially when the father's debts, though considerable, hardly justified such extreme measures. Yet the hallmarks of deliberate planning grew undeniable, creating a disturbing portrait of a family's silent downfall. In the hush that followed, each new fragment of data merely sharpened the unresolved horror lurking in that quiet suburban street. Several years slipped by without a single trace of Liu Qikan or Lin Chen-mei. Some believed they had fled overseas, while others whispered rumors of foul play or a hidden underworld connection. Authorities occasionally revisited the case, re-examining old interviews and cross-referencing data, yet all leads reached a dead end. Over time, the talk of that tragic family on the quiet street in Hualien grew faint, replaced by newer headlines and more urgent concerns. The house where the bodies were found remained sealed, its windows gathering dust, its grey walls silently bearing the memory of the horror inside. In mid-2015, a local hunter roaming the forests beyond the nearest township stumbled across two sets of skeletal remains, partially hidden among weeds and fallen branches. Tattered clothing and a pair of rusted cans lay scattered nearby. A battered pair of prescription glasses, frames still clinging to a cracked lens, captured the hunter's attention, prompting him to notify local law enforcement. Forensic experts quickly arrived, retrieving what was left of the bodies and sending them for analysis. Through painstaking DNA comparison, they confirmed the remains belonged to Liu Chikan and Lin Chen-mei. There were no obvious signs of external trauma, though the presence of discarded pesticide containers indicated possible self-poisoning, or an end brought about by despair. No diaries or recorded confessions were recovered, leaving only speculation as to how their final days had unfolded on that remote mountainside. With the couple's identification finally established, the police closed the investigation, citing insufficient grounds to pursue criminal charges against deceased suspects. Though the official statement declared the case resolved, many unanswered questions lingered in the background. Some observers believed the parents had conspired to end their children's lives and then escape, either out of a twisted notion of salvation or a cold resolve to avoid facing shame and debt. Others saw the notes left in the house as genuine cries for help, suggesting a greater menace that forced them into committing unthinkable acts. Yet no conclusive evidence ever surfaced to confirm a third party's involvement. And the tapes, the sealed windows, and the fingerprints all indicated that at least one parent had actively orchestrated every step. When the final report was issued, it cited a brutal combination of financial ruin and mental anguish as probable factors. The chilling possibility arose that they had decided to erase their family to evade the crushing burden of debt. Those last images of the children, cramped and bound in a tiny bathroom, continued to haunt the few investigators who had seen the scene firsthand. Journalists revisiting the case described the parents' skeletal remains found miles away, suggesting a final flight into seclusion, a desperate bid to sever ties with the world. As the remains were eventually interred without public ceremony, the air of mystery around their exact motives lingered. Even today, mention of the Liu home brings back a collective shudder, a reminder that unspeakable acts can hide behind an ordinary facade, and that no one, not even those closest to us, can fully know what weighs on a troubled mind.